has said that, quote, ramping up the military hysteria is senseless, and China's joined him in calling for further negotiations. Now, for more on the issue, we're crossing to Hazel Smith, Professor at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. Hazel, thanks for joining us. We've heard there that Vladimir Putin brushing off the notion of further sanctions, even though Ambassador Nikki Haley for the US called for them specifically at the UN. Putin says diplomacy is the only way forward. Do you see Washington and Pyongyang finding a peaceful solution here?
I don't think that these are either or options. It is likely, I think, that the whole of the Security Council will be looking for some ways to increase the sanctions. I think they've all said that they're going to try to look at this. But one thing that President Putin points out is that of themselves, economic sanctions, it's difficult to see how they can achieve a resolution to the conflict. Normally, economic sanctions, one of two ways really that they operate. One is that they accompany military conflict, and two, states have historically used them to try to put squeeze on both populations and government, with the idea that if the population suffers, then they can put pressure on their governments and that this could lead to change. In North Korea, where the population has really no input at all into government decision-making, that's unlikely to happen. So without the two options, one is the military option to have all-out war, because that's what it would probably take to defeat the North Koreans. It might not, but the US military planners consider in their internal reviews that it would take millions of casualties, at least in the short term, or as some form of diplomatic solution. And that would have to be a very big offer. It would have to involve the United States. It would have to involve the North Korean regime being offered some form of security deal where they would remain in power. Because that's what this whole nuclear issue is all about for them. They consider that it's only because they've developed nuclear weapons and missile capacity that they've been able to, as they say, or they consider, deter military intervention from outside. So it is a big issue regarding whether or not the major powers are prepared, particularly the ones that count, the United States in this case, are prepared to offer some form of security deal which would see the current regime maintain themselves in place.
Mm-hmm. And the North Korean ambassador to the UN called these nuclear tests a gift to the US in the face of provocation, and that sanctions wouldn't work. Are they right to be so confident? Is Pyongyang getting reassurance from some quarters?
There's no doubt that none of the major powers, whether that's China or Russia or the United States, support the North Korean nuclear program, all for different sorts of reasons, as well as the obvious reasons about safety and security and instability. China shares a 1,000-mile border with North Korea. All that instability brings to North Korea, spills over into its country. It can't, for instance, encourage foreign investors to move into parts of their northeast, and they would like them to do so because of the instability brought by North Korea's nuclear development. Even Russia, which only has a 10-mile border with North Korea on its northeast, doesn't see any mileage for anybody in the development of nuclear weapons, not the least because what this is doing in North Korea is encouraging arms racing elsewhere. We see defence budgets increasing very largely in South Korea, and we see all the countries of the region, including the players that are not in the region like the United States, but have got an important impact on the region, talking about increasing their military budgets. So this doesn't benefit any of the major powers in the region. So North Korea, I think, can be pretty well explained by its own internal dynamics. And it's not, and this is because they don't keep these a secret. What they've said openly is that they consider that Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein in particular laid themselves open to be overthrown because they abandoned what we call the weapons of mass destruction.
Thank you very much. Hazel Smith there, reporting from London. Text